Welcome to Hawaii, my hale, my little bit of paradise, and part 2 of Nonfiction November. Aloha and welcome back to my channel, the Baby Boomer Booktuber. I'm Marilyn Maya, and I welcome you to the island of Oahu in beautiful Hawaii. This is Chique again. I mistakenly told you that she was 13 in my last video, but this is actually her 14th birthday, and we gave her a bath and she looks much prettier today, don't you think? She's my shadow. She follows me everywhere I go, and I really love her so much. She's my baby. Anyway, I wanted to show you what I'm wearing today. I'm wearing a kukui nut lei. The kukui nut was used only for chieftains in ancient Hawaii and to respect their deities. But now it means the name kukui in Hawaiian means a source of light. It has come to symbolize enlightenment, knowledge, and learning. And what could be more educational than books, right? So I thought it was apropos that I wear this not very expensive kukui nut lei, but it gives you an idea of how leis can be different than flowers. We use seeds, we use flowers. Anyway, this is my second go at Nonfiction November, my second episode, because I had so many books just hanging around the house, and also I bought a few books recently that were nonfiction. So let's get at it. My first book is Stalking Irish Madness by Patrick Tracy, searching for the roots of my family's schizophrenia. This is a very interesting book and unusual book, and it's said about it by Malachi McCourt, who was Frank McCourt's brother and the author of A Monk Swimming, also a memoir. He says, in this powerful, sometimes harrowing, deeply felt story, Patrick Tracy journeys to Ireland to track the origin and solve the mystery of his Irish-American's family multi-generational struggle with schizophrenia. And it says that for most Irish Americans, a trip to Ireland is often an occasion to revisit their family roots. But for Patrick Tracy, the lore of his ancestral home is a much more powerful need, part pilgrimage, part investigation to confront the genealogical mystery of schizophrenia, a disease that has claimed a great-great-grandmother, a grandmother, and an uncle, and most recently 2 sisters. And this was a very absorbing book, and I didn't know too much about schizophrenia, though one of my relatives suffers from it, a very close relative. So I was very interested to learn how genealogy plays a role in it. My mother was bipolar, and though I'm not bipolar, I have an anxiety disorder. So I was interested in reading how another mental illness, schizophrenia, can be affected so much by genes. Anyway, it was a very interesting read, and I gave it a 4-star read. The only reason that I didn't give it 5-star read, it does get very deeply into the subject, and some people, I was a little bit, at parts of it, I got a little bored with the details, but basically I recommend it. A book that I recently bought was Geneen Roth's Lost and Found. Janine Roth has been an author that I've went to again and again. If her name sounds familiar, she's the author of a lot of books about compulsive overeating. And if this sounds very familiar to you, Feeding the Hungry Heart, When Food is Love, Why Weigh, and When You Eat at the Refrigerator, Pull Up a Chair, Breaking Free from Emotional Eating. I think I've read all of her books. This book is a little different. It's called Women, Food, and God, Lost and Found. And I was interested in this because, to be honest, the books that I read from her didn't help me lose the 70 pounds that I was carrying around, like pounds of pain in my life. And I was looking everywhere for an answer to lose weight until I found out that you have to be ready to get rid of the real reasons or the pain that drives you to food. But I did enjoy her. She's a very caring person and a very good writer. And she has, in her memoir, I think they're all memoirs really, she tells about her struggle with weight. In this book, I haven't read it yet, but I was really surprised that her first chapter deals with her losing all her money with the Madoff scam. So that's really interesting because I guess she has to deal with the loss of money and how it relates to things like food and, I guess, God. So this seems like a very interesting read. And it said, praise for Lost and Found, dazzling insights and elegant wisdom from one of the truly sophisticated minds of our time. She's not only sophisticated, but she's caring, and that's more important to me. Anyway, on a similar vein, my next book is called French Toast for Breakfast, Declaring Peace with Emotional Eating. This was written by Marianne Cohen and actually was a book that helped me more in my struggles. And I was very much taken with the title. I don't know how many people are taken with titles more than the way a book looks, but I love titles. And I was wondering why she wrote this until I read her foreword or the foreword. It said, a word about the title. I have been struck by the number of my patients who have expressed to me a yearning for French toast for breakfast. They seldom satisfied this yearning because it seemed too much of a forbidden treat. My hope is that through this book you will nurture yourself in other satisfying ways as well. Need I say that I have an obsession with French toast. When I go back to New York, or when I used to go back to New York, I sought out the places that specialized in this forbidden treat. And I really enjoyed myself, so I can't say that I denied myself. And even when I started losing weight, I never, by reading this book and others, I realized that it's not one food that you eat that makes you come back for more and more and more. It's what's missing in your life that makes you eat more than the body needs. And I had to find out what was missing in my life and what traumas were in my life that caused me to overeat. In my journey, I ended up losing 70 pounds and keeping it off for 20 years. So I hope anybody who's suffering with this eating disorder, because it is an eating disorder, and it was caused also by my anxiety disorder, which is an eating, anxiety is part of, an eating disorder is part of anxiety disorder. Anyway, my next book is on a completely different subject. It's called Tea Celebrations. Another way that I celebrate myself is by drinking tea. And I talked about this, and I'm very surprised how many booktubers out there are tea drinkers. And this is a book by Alexandra Stoddard, and it's way back, and it says The Way to Serenity. And tea was used in many different ways. If you go to Japan and you see the tea ceremonies, and there's a book that I'll have in the description box, I think it's called The Way of Tea or similar, that was written in 1920s by a Japanese man who was in, who came from Japan and was teaching the upper classes about tea, and he was trying to teach them that tea was much more than tea. And I think that's what Alexandra Stoddard, who's more of a home decorator, living life guru in the 90s, was saying here. This was written all the way in 1994, and I really enjoyed it. And it says, "To my aunt who took me around the world when I was 16 and opened my eyes to life, beauty, and tea." And she says here, whether it's a formal Japanese tea ceremony, an English high tea, or simply a pot of tea and some cookies shared with friends, the act of drinking tea has long been a way for people to achieve a feeling of serenity. And I have to say that the other Alexandra Stoddard books that I've read were me not getting into a poverty mentality. She was rich. She was always rich. She talks about how she was a interior decorator. She studied under a famous interior decorator, and she always had very fancy things, and she lived a life of luxury, basically. But by reading about her life, it made me feel, in my small way, that I was living a life of luxury. And that's what books can do for you, I think. We can put ourselves in the place of other people, whether they be similar to us or really different. And one thing that I could do, even when I was very poor, was drink tea. And whether it was a cup of Lipton, and now my tastes have gone to Yorkshire Gold, but still, it gave me the same feeling of luxury that she talks about. And I say this book is, if you find it in a thrift shop, it's a good read. Well, thank you for coming to my home in Hawaii and visiting with me for a few more nonfiction books. I love nonfiction, and I think that nonfiction helped me to grow into the woman of enlightened wisdom that I am today, if I must say so, because I think that I have learned a lot by reading, and I hope to share this with anyone who comes to my channel, because you're all welcome. And as we say in Hawaii, until we meet again, aloha.